Hello there, it's Michael Fortin with another episode of Ask Michel. Today I want to cover something that has always intrigued me about language and communications and, of course, copywriting. And it also now pervades into the realm of digital communications and social media. And it's something that I've learned a while back, and I can't remember who exactly was the first person who taught me this, although I know that Tony Alessandra, a behavioral scientist who teaches a lot about selling and communications, talks about this. It's called the meta message. It is the message behind the message. And a meta message is another message that we convey in the delivery of our message. And a meta message can either support what we're saying, it can enhance what we're saying, and it can actually contradict what we're saying. Now, there are different forms of meta messages, and we talk about this in psychology. For example, there's the science of kinesics, which is the science of body language. So the body language that you have when you talk to a certain person can, like I said, support, enhance, or contradict your main message. There's also the science of proxemics. And it's funny that this all came about because the other day I got my professional photographs taken for my LinkedIn profile from a photographer. And they had to be very careful with the whole social distancing rules right now with the COVID. And whenever they were trying to put some makeup on my shiny spot here, so that when it doesn't shine in the flash of the camera, we were talking about how it's important to have a certain space in communications, and we talk about this in marketing. And the gentleman was also very astute about marketing communications himself, and him and his partner. And so I talk about proxemics, which is the science of space. So the message that you convey to somebody when you're delivering the message, depending on the space that you hold with another person, can, like I said, support, enhance, or contradict that message. Of course, you know there's personal space, there's social space, there's public space. And if you get too close to a person, you can even touch that person when you're talking and they didn't give you permission to, and you're too close while you're talking to them, you've just invaded their personal space, and you are not only violating their space, but you're also doing a disservice to the message that you're trying to communicate, and it will not be productive, and it'll not certainly not be persuasive. Speaking of touching, there's also the science of haptics, and that is the science of touching. So I talk about this. I've talked about this in my my previous articles, and I know that I'm going to butcher this because I'm going by memory here. But there was a psychology experiment done by a university where they put a quarter. This is back in the, we're talking 20 years ago, back in the day, where they were phone booths. And people would have put a quarter into the phone to make a phone call. Excuse me. I think this still exists. Some rare parts, right? Anyways, they hid behind the bushes. They left a quarter on top of the phone booth. They hid behind the bushes. And when somebody would go into the phone booth and pick up the quarter, they would jump out of the bushes and then stop the person and said, "Hi, I need to make an urgent phone call. I believe I left my quarter in the phone booth. Did you see it?" And a very small percentage of people would give back the quarter. I can't remember exactly the number, but I think it's like something in the 40s, 46% or something like that. And then they did the same test, exactly the same way, but while they were saying, wait, I need to make an urgent call. I left a quarter in the phone booth. Can you? And they touched the person slightly, just no more than a second or two, and when they did that, 70 plus percent of the people, if not more, I think almost 90%, I can't remember the exact number, but a lot more gave back the quarter to the people that were conducting the tests. So it is very important. Now, the one that I like is what we call paralinguistics, and that's the science of what we communicate in the way we present a message. And this is very applicable to content marketing, and communications, and of course, copywriting. Now, I'm going to give you an example of paralinguistics this is, of course, verbal cues and intonation, inflection, pitch, and I'll explain how that applies to, especially to copywriting. So let me give you a sentence. I didn't say he stole a cookie. Now, that is a very simple sentence, and by itself, it conveys a pretty simple meaning. I didn't say he stole a cookie. Now, let me inflect each word in that sentence. I didn't say he stole a cookie. No, somebody else did. I didn't say he stole a cookie. No, I probably implied it, or somebody else said it, or I wrote it. I didn't say he stole a cookie. I said something else, or I wrote it or whatever. I didn't say he stole a cookie. No, she did. I didn't say he stole the cookie. No, he just borrowed it. I didn't say he stole the cookie. He stole something else, or another cookie. I didn't say he stole the cookie. He stole a piece of bread. So you see, it could convey there's a lot of implied messages by inflecting every single word of that sentence. So you have a sentence, let's say, with 7 words, and you inflect every one of those 7 words, you'll have 7 completely different meanings, or 7 completely different meta messages. In copywriting, we do this, especially, or in content, we do this especially with formatting. Something that a very well-known marketer by the name of Dan Kennedy talks about, he talks about copy cosmetics. Now, when he talks about it, he talked about it in terms of the Johnson boxes and how the layout of the copy and how it looks and how it reads and all that stuff, marking it up and all that, although that can help. What I'm talking about is formatting, which is bolds, italics, underlines, all caps, and or words. I call it the William Shatner approach, where every word is its own sentence, right? Like, this is right now. Now, those do communicate meta messages, right? So if I say, I didn't say he stole a cookie, it's kind of hard to convey those 7 different meanings. So what you do is you either bold, italicize, or underline each word, or the word that you want to add emphasis in the implied meta message, right, in that sentence. And it will communicate its own thing. So that is the power of meta messages. Now, meta messages also can include other things like colors. It could include, they say, for example, blue is more subdued, more professional, whereas red is more emotional, more aggressive. And so on and so on and so forth. What I would challenge you to do is take a look at your current communications, your current copy, your current color scheme, the images, the choice of photos that you have. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to have a brand new photo, because it does convey professionalism. It does convey a lot of different things. For example, I had all my photos on my websites all have ties. And I decided for this time to have more of a business casual look, because I want it to appear more open. And some split tests have proven that in many cases, having no tie but still having a professional, like a jacket, it does increase response. It does increase also the quality of that response, and so on and so forth. So look at your images, look at your content, look at your social media posts. What does it communicate? Not with the messages themselves, but the meta messages. You might have, for example, somebody who says, I have a message and it describes me and it's me and this is me. This is my message, and take it or leave it, right? Now, you might have people who do agree with you and follow you based on that message. And I'm not saying a crass message or anything. It could be a message that's based on an industry, for example. But my point is, and personality, my point is, depending on how you present your message, you might also communicate a meta message. Again, that could enhance, support, or contradict that message. So the question asked is, does it truly communicate what you're trying to communicate? Very often, that is something that you can't really answer. Sometimes you can. Sometimes if you're an expert in communications, or you understand copy, you understand psychology, you understand how people, when they read, they perceive and consume that information. We talk about, for example, user experience on a website, which does a lot of that communication. And I'll end it with this, user experience. If you have a website that looks shoddy, that is poor navigation, it doesn't work really well, what does that communicate about you and the service behind you? That's the meta message, right? It basically says, or people would think, if they can't take care of their own websites, who says they can't take care of me, right? So look at the meta messages that you convey. Now, I want to answer that. I didn't do that. Sorry. Ask, and sometimes it's your best way to see if you're communicating the proper meta message is to go after people who would become your market. Not necessarily in the sense of getting them to buy your product, although that could happen. It's just that if you go to either existing clients might not necessarily say what you want to hear. They might say what you want to hear, but they might not necessarily say the truth, or they might not necessarily think back and realize the meta message that they've understood. And don't ask family and friends too, or coworkers, because of course they see it from the inside in, right? I think I remember somebody saying it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, right? So get people who would become your clients, or people who fit your target market, your market, to look at your message and ask them, get their feedback. Say, what does this message say to you? But also, how does it make you feel, or how does it make you think, or how does it make you want to behave or act? And that will tell you a lot, because even if you have the best message, the best website, the best content, they might still communicate something that you might not want. And or opposite, it might be perfect. It might say exactly what you're trying to communicate. So I hope that helps. If you have any other questions like this for me, you can ask Michel, #AskMichel on the socials, and I'll put it in the queue and answer it on a future episode. My name is Michael Forden, and you can reach me at michaelforden.com. I highly encourage you to subscribe to my channel, or to visit my website. You can also subscribe to my mailing list there. See you next time.